Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to Between the Lines. I'm Abeera, and today I'm delighted to have Dr. Javaria Farooqui with me. Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome all the time.
You would tell us what are we talking about, since the book that we're discussing, it's by Ayesha Muzaffar. It's with the title The Haunting of Dr. Rahimuddin, Shamsi and Other Unsettling Tales. And this very book has 3 stories, and those stories have different lives, right? Different spaces, and yet we keep returning to the same question, which is, what if the horror isn't what enters us, but what we are capable of holding within us, right? So tell us more about it.
Okay, so because I have this academic background and popular cultural scholarship and horror scholarship and everything, so I would just talk briefly about horror genre and horror genre generally, very broadly speaking, based upon the scholarship and so on and so forth. So horror genre, why we are attracted towards it, it is a push and pull kind of situation, right? Because it is something that one overarching question of the genre most of the time is that you are shown two conflicting sides, right? Things that are not supposed to be together, but they are together, like human, non-human, dead and alive, the zombies and addict, right? So there's that aspect. Then you have, there are so many dimensions, but the basic push is that our attraction for the genre is about the uncanny, about the things we do not understand and our interest in them and the way we are repulsed by them at times. So it's such a huge field, and I would really recommend anyone who is interested in exploring the field at all. But we are going to stick to our point. So I would, and one thing that, so whenever I read Ayesha Muzaffar's book, her works, I started off by reading Jinnastan. So Jinnastan and then Bhabis of Lahore, and this is the third book that I've read, right? So with Jinnastan, what really fascinated me about Jinnastan was that Muzaffar's prose, it just flows in, right? So it is, she writes for Pakistani audience, right? So when she started writing was specific, it's more prominent in Jinnastan, right? Now, why? Because in Jinnastan, there were no subtitles, let's say no translations of the Urdu words over it, right? And there are moments of horror that are happening, and that entire horror moment is in Urdu, right? In popular urban slang. So it's a very Lahore, Lahore with Lahori slang and everything. And that was what I so loved about it, right? But when I talked about it, so I'm going to introduce one scholarly platform. So if you're interested in horror scholarship and Gothic scholarship, etc., Dr. Sam Hirsch, she runs a platform. First, it used to be on Twitter, but now it has moved to Blue Sky. So I think it's on Instagram as well. But you can search up.
Can I share it? Yeah, name on, yes, Romancing the Gothic, right?
So I gave a talk on Romancing the Gothic about Jinnastan, and before that they had a book club. So for Jinnastan. So all the readers who were not Pakistani, Lahori, English fusion readers, they were very interested in it, but that was a difficulty, right? That there were no, usually when you are writing words of Urdu, in an English prose, you are translating it, or you are sort of justifying it. I love how she embraces the idiom. And it's not that she is using words where where there are no substitutes for those words in English, right? It's just there. Just like we talk, yeah. And so I can go on and on about what specific Lahori phrases I love about her prose, but now as it has evolved, in Bhabis of Lahore, it was approximately the same thing, but in The Haunting of Dr. Hussein Shamsi, she has given, the author has given, translations, a bit of translations. So the phrases they are translating. So I keep thinking back about that book club that we had for romancing the Gothic. So I think that this is like particularly useful for people who are not in an area. But the very idea that we have this acknowledgement of that huge readership, right? It's yes, it is a popular text. It is genre fiction, right? But in our context, this is very middle brow. Right? Yeah. So it's not because we are acknowledging through texts like through authors like and reading styles like this, writing styles like this, we are acknowledging that group of readers, that vast group of readers constituted by people who are reading for pleasure in English and who are very urban, middle class. Yeah. So yes, that too.
And this text has the Pakistani-ness that, yes, we would be talking about in detail because exactly the Pakistani idiom that Tawfiq Rafat has talked about. Well, it's there because it says much there. Yeah, and all the cultural myths. So all the urban cultural mythology that, things that we may think, and that's where horror usually is situated, right? In bodies, how bodies are transformed, how bodies are porous, how houses are porous, how things are porous, and so on, and how female sexuality and how things and horror in many dimensions. I mean, there's a lot about horror that is related to social structures and everything. So when we talk about society, so whatever society is repressing, horror fiction has a way of showing that, that repression is manifesting itself. Yeah, but the best part is we don't have supernaturality the other way around. There are no ghosts. It's like your inner taking shape every day.
And I know one of water in the everyday and so I was just reading, there's some very beautiful passages that I marked and so on, but your everyone is very welcome to read that.
And she begins in a certain way. And when I wake up for
This is very so cute because she starts talking about the horror, right?
no, there's this thing. Not to be right by the newlywed bride who sleeps in an empty bed, by the woman soon to be too, by the man drowning in guilt, by the son too familiar with the old age home, by the one who has forgotten the steps of wuzu, and especially by those who do not believe in the jinn. For these people, whether their thoughts are good or bad, curious or indifferent, they all carry a scent that attracts the unseen.
And you would see that so in Haunting of Dr. Rahimuddin Shamsi and in Bhabis of Law in Jinistan, Muzaffar, she would constantly talk about bodies and specifically female bodies, sexualities, things that we talk about, things that are everyday, and how those things they become uncanny and they are presented in a certain way. They're woven into the prose. And apart from horror, apart from horror, there's this very acute description of the everyday as well, right? And that everyday is what sort of like gets you into the story, and that's a very let's say textbook.
You just move from one story to the other. Let's start from story one. Right? Okay, so what happens in the first story is that we have a boy who's born with a six finger. To parents, to the woman who is a little superstitious, and somebody in GCU tells her, okay, there's a problem आपके किसी फैमिली मेंबर के साथ, and it turns out कि उसको लगता है अच्छा उसकी छठी उंगली है, मेरे बेटे के साथ मसला है, ठीक है, and she lives her entire life thinking कि अच्छा मैंने इसको protect कैसे करना है, इसको बचाना किससे दुनिया से, and the son Rahim is sent off to a cadet college. उसकी पर्सनालिटी ऐसे शेप हो जाती है, he has a brother जो strong है और basically वो persona है, ये shadow है रहीम. So एक कंपैरिजन वो दिखाते हैं कि एक तरफ एक स्ट्रॉन्ग बच्चा है, एक तरफ ये ज़रा टिमिड सा शाय सा बच्चा है, एंड द फादर इज बेसिकली एब्सेंट फ्रॉम द सीन, ही डजंट अंडरस्टैंड मच. तो उसकी रिप्रेशन बेसिकली उधर से ही निगलेक्शन एक आना शुरू हो जाती है लाइफ में, व्हेन ही इज़ नॉट अलाउड टू बी द डॉक्टर दैट ही वांट्स टू बी, एंड ही रिटर्न्स डूइंग थिंग्स ही डजंट वांट टू डू, एंड देन इट टर्न्स आउट कि वो फाइनली डेंटिस्ट बन जाता है जिस तरह मर्सी. So the place that he has his clinic, that certain place has a certain energy. And also he goes out getting furniture, second-hand furniture from Sunday Bazaar. And maybe that furniture holds within it energies or things died जो मसला करना शुरू कर देती हैं. So what comes in is the idea that places absorb energy, right? Later on, he has visions, he has everything else there. He has patients who he treats and who turn out to be something else. Then he's told a certain thing that I've written and I'd want to add here. It's like there's this term of residue haunting. कि जगह जो है वो अपने अंदर किस तरह, and it was so horrifying that I began thinking how I invite everybody. Oh, and I started going to every place. So it's such a wonderful line. It says, everything carries energy. If something terrible happened around it, sometimes that energy soaks into things like memory into cloth. And if it is not cleared, it lingers. Not all contents are entities, some are just residue. So this very idea, and then there came an idea that, oh, that clinic was sold to gents and they used to pay in gold coins. And when they stopped paying, the landlord just sold the place to Rahim. और बस इसकी शौकत आ गई.
Okay, so thing is that, all right, I would read it differently, or way differently, in the sense that the haunting, because it's a haunting of Dr. Rahimuddin Shamsi, right? So the haunting started from the minute he was born. It was always there, right? It did not go, right? There was this energy in the house. He was a very silent child. And then, when the mother tried to cut off the finger, there was this, the first instance of screaming and like that, right? And the energy that stayed with him and all that, right? So what you would notice, apart from, of course, the endings, which are supposed to be very, very horror filled and everything, right? So what I would focus on is how the story goes about it and how the story builds up to horror, right? Which is a very distinct Muzaffar style, right? So the author is going to, if you would like to, if you are a scholar, right? And you're looking at things for a certain paper or research or some,
What did we do? Yes. I write the search paper in every book that I read.
So you can definitely go into, like, there are some instances, for example, if you would like to read it as an instance of that eco-horror phenomena, idea and everything, all that scholarship, you want to read up on it and, go into that detail. So there's this, there are these moments where you would have right in the start of the story. So description of the home, I'm because my doctorate is on settings and I go into details and all that stuff. So it's like, there was this house not very far from here. The owners had just expanded it years ago and so on and so forth. So a few months after the construction, strange things started. At night, they would hear chatter upstairs, like dozens of voices talking on at once, and there people are talking into Pashto and everything. But when you cut down certain, so they come to the part where they are describing the certain trees, why the house that is in question, right? Where, and relating to the clinic and all that. So it's about, the family hadn't realized it, of course, but when you cut down certain ancient trees, you disrupt something. Think of it like breaking a highway in the middle of nowhere, suddenly with all the traffic piles up elsewhere. A tree, especially an old one, isn't just wood. It's a node, a marker, a gravitational anchor between dimensions. They cut it, built a bedroom over it, and the pressure had to go somewhere, right? So if this isn't eco-horror, and now you can bring it all the phenomena about how, and you will find so many tales, urban, let's say, ecosomatics woven into the story. I can go into the gender dimension of things as well. If you would want to talk about the representation of Pakistani women, how gender is perceived, how gender is portrayed, how women are portrayed, right? You can go there too. And if you want to go into the, ecosomatic dimensions, definitely you can explore them as well. And if we are talking about the gender dimensions of the story, or let's say gendered aspect of exploration of the story, you have such rich female characters, right? For example, the mother, Asma, right? So the mother Asma, how she is, sort of like, she just fits into, she goes with the flow, and that's the only point where she has herself. She never has herself, right? And the son realizes that, right? That perhaps, I'm going to miss her, but for once, perhaps she's going to have her own personality. She's going to be free, right? And there's this so much lore, so many ways in which she is minimized. So it's not just about her being superstitious. It's about her, being erased as a woman as well, right? The father never looked at her. For the father, she was somebody who was supposed to be, ordered and out, somebody who was supposed to be taken care of, somebody who was supposed to be put into the place, which is a very, very typical thing, right? And then it is about the ways in which the society has suppressed men too. Because the father, he was not allowed to be himself, right? There are moments when he used to eat, when, and, have a sigh of relief, right? So it's like it's about all the pretenses and how all the energy, ultimately, you can talk about all the gendered energies, all the societal pressures, and how all the things are, building up pressure.
So what you are bringing into light is the fact that each member of the family has suppression or repression of some sort, and that is showing up through, I think, Rahim. Showing up through Rahim and showing up through other energies as well in the story. I mean, what about all the... Of course, we are not going to dumb down the horror aspect and everything, but if you think about it in a very, let's say, a sensible psychological way, and, all that stuff. And she has mentioned in the preface as well that every story has, a sliver of truth in it, right? So, but what if we build up horrors? I know people who start seeing, there's this student of mine who started seeing things, right? And you told about a student, I myself had some captures. So it's like, it's not that those things were not real, right? Those things were very much part of their trauma. Yeah. Right? So sometimes when trauma is so, let's say, potent, trauma is so powerful, it manifests itself into things, right? That sometimes you see things, and all those things, good horror prose like hers, it just, grasps those uncanny and builds a narrative out of it. And with Ayesha Muzaffar, when I say Muzaffar, it sounds so, masculine. So this is why I say either the entire name or just Ayesha. Oh, so yeah. Having read her made me feel that this woman writes about parapsychology. You getting it? Not about supernaturality, but about parapsychology. How? Because her entire thing brings in the mind. We have psychokinesis there, we have telepathy there, we have unresolved trauma, guilt coming up. Especially in this second story, which too doesn't make sense to some point. But when you start making sense of it, you're like, oh my God, there are lots of things, those are there. That very woman, Farwa, when she loses her husband, who just simply disappears after an accident, she has failed to live through that trauma, that pain. She hasn't really internalized it because, हम death को तो okay closure आपको मिल जाता है कि ठीक है somebody has died. लेकिन disappearance uska kya, it's there. And then she remarries and then has a kid. तो फिर postpartum भी तो है एक reality. और अभी she is not over it. Obviously 7 years का period होता है ना, एक खैर ना तो मैं हमारी society में wait कर सकते. So she has another kid. And then she's unable to take care of both. और मतलब postpartum भी है, फिर उसका guilt भी है. And by the end they tell us how being vulnerable opens doors. I mean, crying in the bathrooms and being alone.
Relating to what you were saying about crying and everything. So, in not so much in this, but in other stories as well, she has talked about how there was this mention of this urban mythology, that if you're going to cry, specifically women are crying, right? How it is related to extraordinary Nahusat, right? And, again, and you can keep on exploring it for variety of ideas, right? How things associated with women's bodies, how they are specifically related to the supernatural and for what purposes, right? And then, the truth of it all and how, and definitely one very important aspect of it, which I would love that some scholar of religion would explore, right? Because I'm not exactly qualified to explore that, and bring into, explore how, because that's again, if you are going to bring in the Pakistan element, and when you're going to bring in the religion, religious and cultural mythology of religion, right? Which is very specific to Pakistan, right? As in, like you would have some ideas about some concepts about some, what do I say, some solid beliefs about religion, which are very specific to Pakistan, right? They are not exactly followed by Muslims in other parts of the world. So when we are talking about those, that is, these narratives are a very rich resource if you would like to explore horror with reference to theology, from a theological perspective. And if you're going to look into how, as you just read the preface, I think, or, no, I think it wasn't the preface. It was, it appears on the second page. I don't know what to call it. It's old, but I think it was like, it's a sort of like, again, itself, it's very interesting because it's a note for all the future readers, right? So that includes that, those who have forgotten the steps of voodoo, meaning that they have not prayed for a very long time, right? And the idea that, which is very prevalent in the society as well, that the more you are under the influence of black magic, or if some jinn has possessed you, you won't be able to pray, right? So all those, and this is just one example. There's so much more, which is very, very Pakistani, very urban, very middle class. But Asha Muzaffar keeps that religion thing alongside her narrative because it is there in the third story. By the end, he sees Dr. Anil polish and then doing the wudu and prayer. So it's there. It's very much there in all the stories, because that's how it becomes your everyday, becomes part of you, because this horror is rooted in Pakistani culture, Pakistani traditions, and yes, about us. Okay. And then the idea that one self, one body may hold two personalities. That appears in our third story, right? That we have a psychiatrist there who's dealing with a patient, Abeera. And then all of a sudden, that very patient disappears. And by the end, we are made to come across notes signed under the name Dr. Anam, and then some signed under the name Abeera. And one gets to think if the healer became the patient, or what happened there. We're made to assume a lot. And then there's no ghost. It's just the inner workings. जैसे उसके सोफे के नीचे engraved हुआ होता है. Yeah. I think I read something way back, which was very much like this. I'm forgetting the name of the author, but I think the book was Shutter Island. If you have read that, but yeah. And there was another book that was, again, with the idea that somehow, it's revealed at the end that the person who was investigating was a person who was, under trauma and kept in log and so on and so forth, or something. So, yes, so definitely a very interesting plot. Yeah, because people hearing stories of other people may absorb a lot. And if you're unable to erase certain things from your psyche, they become a part of you, and maybe you start living more than one life. And they have so many dimensions to it again. Tell us more about what you are into with the Gothic literature, and where do you put Pakistani literature? I mean, abhi kya scene hai? Pakistani literature cannot have a scene in the traditional sense of the word. Why? But we do have a very rich Pakistani literature landscape, which is growing. And it itself is, let's say, stuff for Uncanny, because we have survived the traditional, we have survived the way in which traditional modes of publishing and reading and everything works, right? So, regardless of the fact that there is no big publishing house in Pakistan, there are but again, no big publishing house is interested in publishing the stories of Pakistani authors. They don't have the resources, they don't have access to global markets unless they are going to land some international publishers and everything. But still, Pakistani authors are thriving against all odds, right? There are authors who are publishing elsewhere and then getting their reprints in Pakistan. There are authors who are publishing their work in Pakistan. You have and I'm just talking about Pakistani Anglophone fiction, right? So not Urdu fiction. So if you're talking about Urdu fiction, the only publishing industry that is thriving is Khawateen Najish and Fakiza, right? So there are popular women's digest, and then there used to be this. I have no idea about it. I wanted to work on it, but so far nothing. But there used to be a digest called Der. I don't know if it's still published, but when I was working on some horror and gothic stuff, so I came across that. So that used to be published by Pakistani publishers, like it was our magazine. So, okay, coming back to the question of Pakistani Anglophone fiction writers, so many of them are publishing and many of them are thriving. And you just need to look it up. And I think what Ayesha Muzaffar is doing for horror, you have, Zara Nabeed is writing romance, and you have Abeera Khan, he's very popular. So I'm talking about people whose work has reached the Pakistani market, right? Apart from all the publication difficulties, all the issues that they faced, and the authors, they would keep on talking about it. They have huge platforms. And then you have Dr. Osama Siddiq as well. He experimented with a very unique style, and it has been pretty successful. People have been writing thesis on that as well. So there's this one book in Pakistani Anglophone fiction, and the same book is published in Urdu as well. So, I mean, there's this. So, we are very conflicting people. Apparently, we never have, like, since the creation of Pakistan, no political party has ever paid any attention to the non-existence of public libraries. We grew up without having access to any public library, right? And my father used to tell me about lending libraries that used to work in his time. Now, like, we never saw those lending libraries as well, right? There used to be lending libraries in areas in small towns, at least as far as Lahore is concerned, right? Because he was member of a lending library in Lahore, which was very near his home. So, but you judging now, the idea of book clubs has yes, it's there now. It's there, and now what has helped is what has helped the reading. I mean, the reading culture has thrived in Pakistan. Yeah, it has thrived and it has survived. Right? We had old bookshops. Now you have e-copies, digital copies, and even if you are going to access them through dodgy resources, still it's very much there, right? You have access to them. And the number of book clubs and the number of bookish podcasts and the number of small reading clubs, etc., silent book club and reading club and small book channels, people are getting together, they're talking about books. They are having like your podcast, right? Actually, this very podcast was made because I tried to find certain things and I wasn't able to find the tradition of highbrow literature and also that of South Asian literature. So I thought, why not to bring on board the people who have a literary taste? It's not about interviewing people, right? You getting it? Anybody can sit down and just ask questions or आप बैठ के answer करो. So I thought कि conversational mode में
ऐसे बैठ के हम डिस्कशन करें तो क्यों नहीं वो और चलेगा. So we don't have a lot of people watching. Yeah, nothing is coming in. Fine. That's perfectly fine, and that's how. This is how
Reading and reading cultures and without libraries, reading cultures, a very distinct reading culture has survived in Bangladesh, at least in the urban setup, right? And about Hydro is particularly very fashionable for all the academics and everything, right? So popular and lowbrow people generally do not talk about that.
But you are an all-rounder, haven't you been?
No, I started off as a literary snob. So it was like I've talked about it. I've written about it as well. So I mean, if you would like to type my name and arrange it, look it up. I mean, I don't when is the original one. Yeah. So, but the point is that I started off as a very it's a very snotty literary snob, right? So I was like anything below Tolstoy. I was like, oh, you're reading that? All right, fine, good for you. Not for me, right? And then and my friends, I keep on mentioning them all the time. So my friends, Amna and Nida, they introduced me to the world of Harlequin romance and Judith and Dot and all. So yes. So from then onwards,
That's when you became my teacher.
yes, from then on, as well as I figured she looked back. No, I was teaching you when I was doing my doctorate. So I was already in that world very much, right?
Yeah, that's why you came, yes, to us.
Yes. So popular is my thing. Now I think it's been years since I read
So how
literature with a cat.
Okay, so there's this idea. I have a question. Under what conditions does the boundary of the self weaken? And how should the teenagers या आजकल के बच्चे deal with this very idea कि जब vulnerable होते हैं तो खुल जाते हैं दरवाजे? How do we lock them back? Emotional stability कैसे हो?
I think it depends. It's a very relevant question. I mean, you need to find out what teenagers or what the Gen Z, what the millennials even, or even the skibbities, right? Whatever everyone needs to know is that you're allowed to be yourself. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah, it is. And you need time to find yourself and you need time to know who you are.
And then it's okay to be possessed or whatever.
It's okay. And it's also good to acknowledge that you're living in a society which is a very collectivist society, right? So your individual self and your ideas and your personality is never going to have as much significance as it would have in, let's say, individualistic societies or societies that are less collectivist in nature. So I think it's very important to give yourself time and respect yourself because there are very few people around who are going to respect you most of the time, right? So, yeah, and you have to start with yourself.
Okay, so which research lens should we use other than parapsychology for Ayesha Muzaffar's books?
I said, I think mentioned, okay.
Do it again. It's okay. We can take a minute.
Okay, I would suggest I mean, you can definitely go for horror as social commentary, right? If you are going to look into research scholarship that is going to talk about, there's lots, right? So just look up for society, use good words for search, right? Horror, society, and social commentary and everything, and you would come up with excellent scholarship on that. And then I would say that body horror, post-human, and the way and what I previously talked about, I focused in one of the, so I did 2 talks for Romancing the Gothic. One was about, it was about a Pakistani horror drama. So Pakistani horror dramas on television, they are very distinct taste of their own, by the way. And So I talked about romance and depth, right? How a jinn is not supposed to be with a human and how they have not a happily ever after, but still there are romances, right? But recently we had Jinn Ki Shadi Unki Shadi, where the narrative ended with a jinn marrying a human, and it was like a very happy, cute ending. Again, very much religion, very much the building of the haunted house was so beautiful, such a beautiful image. So the settings are very important, and the way the jinn and the human they are going to interact, that is you know, an exploration of its own. And then definitely body horror, definitely comedy, comic horror, right? Not very much in Muzaffar, but if you would go for, let's say, the television dramas, you can explore that as well. So with reference, body horror, and then yes, gendered horror, right? Gender and horror. Yeah, any aspect of that, specifically with reference to the representation of uh, women, issues of sexuality, right? Which are somehow there in this book as well, but just very much there in the Asta. Being a woman and then being vulnerable adds a lot to that vulnerability. You getting it? And if you know, it's because why don't you want the vulnerable? You're more susceptible to heart. You're more susceptible to horror. Is it more susceptible, socially constructed idea? Then of course. And just think about. Let's just take the example from here, right? Because we are talking about this. So the idiom of this book, to quote Tawfiq. So it's like Asma's character. It's very prominent, despite the fact that the story is about her son. She comes through as a very well-rounded character. She is minimized all her fears for her family because she is conditioned to be a wife. She is conditioned to be a mother. And when she is being the wife and when she being the mother, she is sort of like criticized for it, right? Yeah. So that's a double-edged, not double-edged, triple-edged, whatever edged sword that women in patriarchal societies they have to, you the same thing that you are supposed to work, but you're not supposed to work to that extent. So there should be an extent, yeah, of how much you are going to be independent, how much you are going to work, how much you are going to be loud, how much you are going to be respectable, how much you are going to be, bold, how much you are going to be silent. And one mask whose purposes are served this way, right? Uh, do we really need to spell it out? Of course. We don't have to say it, but we know. But we cannot say because we don't want all creeps telling us things again. So it's like it's funny. Yeah, you go do your thing. Did you have a favorite passage from the book? So yeah, I mark it. I've been marking it because I'm an eye to talk about it. So okay. What I think one of the passages that I really loved was that okay. So it was from the point where Rain's friend Salman, he was going away, and he was saying that distance is nothing, right? And we are going to be friends and so on, even if I'm in China and you are here. So Rahim had already learned the lesson Salman hadn't because of his experiences and everything, that people don't vanish in the grand cinematic ways. They don't disappear like magic tricks or melt like ghosts. They fade slowly through pauses in the conversations that used to flow like water, right? Through laughter that no longer sounds the same because the person who made it easy isn't sitting across from you anymore. They fade when their seats gets taken. When their voices become a memory, when your hand still remembers where the shoulder used to be, even though it hasn't been there in a while. It didn't say any of that, of course, right? But it's such a solid feeling, and he just. I was one of my favorites as well. It's so poignant. Yeah. Achha, so it's like my father.
My dear Baba, he was a physician, logical to a fault, but he believed in things most people did not. He used to say that human beings are not just skin and nerves and organs, we are fields of vibrating energy, that every word we speak, every person we let into our home carries a frequency, and not every frequency is meant for us. Yeah. You know what? Lately, I've been doing. I've been letting in lots of people because my son likes it. And having read this book made me feel, oh my God, I don't know the things that I'd be dealing with because this is true. Oh, why wali baat, energy wali baat. It's type of refresh or behavior remind me. It's there. You need to guard certain aspects of your life in order to stay away from negative energies. And this reminds me of something that my friend and I, my friend Papa, and we were talking about this idea of from ancient wisdom and how people are talking about it now, that you're not supposed to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're not supposed to have too much information, right? It's not that you are insensitive. It's not that you are unkind. It's not that you don't want to feel for others. It's just that if you're going to think about others and so many people about all the time, that's not humanly possible. Yeah, that's just at the maximum you can be aware of, you can be, you know, let's say you need the positive energy to think about your immediate circumstances, right? And that's sometimes that's around 200 people, 250 people, and that's a lot. That is right. So if you're, for example, if it's me as an academic, if I'm going to take care of myself, if I'm going to take care of my family, take care of as I'm thinking about them, right? If I'm thinking about my family, if I'm thinking about myself, if I'm thinking about my students, if I'm thinking about higher education system and why it is failing in Pakistan, so it's already like my plate is full. If I'm going to add where Pakistan stands on the international scene, what is happening to our politics, what is happening to the world politics, right? So it's I mean, who is going to even drink or eat or something like that, right? You're not supposed to do that. It's a lot of, and with the advancement of technology and the way world has become a global village, you have a lot of information to process every day. And so you have to find your, again, that idea that your homes, they have become so porous that all the negative energy is seeping in. It is becoming, so if you want to think of it like that, that negative energy we are carrying from the world outside into, our homes, into our homes, let's say, and of course there's this very, let's say, very important metaphor of your body as your home, right? So it's being infiltrated by forces that are beyond your control because once you have let them in, once you have shown your vulnerability, it's a very balancing, living a life is a balancing act, by the way, right? So you have to be vulnerable, you have to acknowledge your vulnerability at certain points in life, and then you have to, sort of like, but finding balance is the main thing, right? Finding balance is there. So on this note, let's wrap it up. Yes. And what would you like to say at the end? Is there something that you'd like to add? I would like to add that if you are going to talk about books, whenever you are going to talk about books, and if you are going to have podcasts like that, so it's very important for the robust literary landscape of Pakistan. I would call it robust. I won't call it dwindling. I don't belong to the Kitabon se Ishq ki Aakhri Sadi hai wala club because book reading and bookish culture, it has survived the test of time against all odds. Nobody has been interested in our education. Nobody has been interested in whether we have public libraries or not. But still, we are reading. You have this podcast, right? There's so many people out there who are working so hard to to keep the books relevant, right? The backside authors, the Pakistani readers, and that's the best thing. Enjoy your screen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you.